So what happened was I was dissolving into this love as I was looking into the eyes of Jesus and feeling, experiencing who he really was and is. And then this being of light, and I can't say whether female or male, I just say female just so I can continue to kind of describe this, because there's a softness about this being, but a strength, and pulled me to the side. And, I don't share this often, but after all these years of reflecting on this experience, I have come to a knowing that who that was actually me. I was the beautiful being pulling me to the side. An amazing, beautiful being of light, and pulling me to the side. And then I was asking questions, like all the questions. And as soon as I would ask it with my words, then immediately I had the answer. And then I just got faster and faster. And I didn't know I had so many questions, but I kept asking them.
My guest today is Tammy Lee Anderson, who at the age of 17 uncovered that she had had a near-death experience when she was born and at 6 months. And this explained the precognitive information that she was given, where she would know before somebody in her family was going to die. And all of this led her into another near-death experience where she was able to ask all of these universal questions that we want to know. Why do we have free will? Why is there suffering in the world? What is Jesus really all about? And she received answers. And through all this, Tammy has come to understand the power of the mind. And she used this to be part of a 5-time champion kayaking team. She used this to help her gain access into the Olympic trials in 1980. And so today, much like a Ginsu commercial, there's more. So tune in, stay tuned, because we're going to dive really deep and she's going to share some incredible information. So Tammy, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Laurie, for that introduction. Thank you for inviting me to your show. This is awesome.
I am so excited. I like to say I'm excited is an understatement, Tammy, because I want to just say I see you. Like I see you and I see what you're doing in the world. And I'm so excited because I feel like you've got some information that will unlock doors for people who tune in. And if they stay tuned in, there are so many things that are going to surprise people about this conversation that they'll be able to use to help in their lives. It's one thing to watch these conversations and be like, oh, that's nice. It's another thing to get information that is so valuable that you could actually implement. And so that's really why I'm so excited to talk to you today. Your NDEs are the icing on the cake of what you are.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, ask away. That's what I'm here for.
Okay.
I
So I want to start right off the bat. You're 17 years old. You go to this church and there's somebody there who actually does something to you that opens you up to remember your first 2 NDEs. So you want to tell a little bit about that and those first 2 NDEs, Jan?
Yes. So I was 17, and since a child, I've been really drawn to the silence and the quiet. And I was quite sensitive as a child and overstimulated by sound and light, even things in the environment. I would often retreat just because it was a bit overwhelming. And so I found places of the quiet just soothing and almost like coming home. And so there was a church near my home, and I would go there when nobody was there and sit in the back, and it was quiet. And I liked the smell of the incense and the light coming through the windows, stained glass windows. And so it was one of my favorite places just to go and sit for a while. And I could feel God. I could feel things that were familiar, and basically a bit of remembering that peace and that quiet that I know is found in that stillness. And so I had been going there for a while, and there was this priest, and I would see him there, but we didn't talk for quite a long time. And then one day he came up to me And this priest, I found out later, had the gift of healing, and people would come to him from all over and do healing. He would do healing masses. This was a Catholic church at the time. I wasn't raised in any religious tradition, but this was a Catholic church. And anyways, so I was just sitting there, and he walked up and said, What's? I see you here often. What brings you here?" And I said, "I really can't tell you. I just like the quiet. That's all I can say is I just it's so peaceful here." And he offered to say a prayer for me, and I thought, "Okay." I thought he'd rattle off some words or something, but it was quiet. He was just silent, and he put his hands on my head, and I felt this warmth come through my whole body, and it was just like almost like almost like warm honey, because it's that slow, and it's just like this melting, and it caused me to go into this state of being that was just like very, very deep, and I felt just a power and a peace, and so as I was experiencing that, then just a flood of remembering and I have to say it's more of a more than remembering, it was a re-experiencing of two near-death experiences I had as a child. Uh, I had a near-death experience as a baby when I was born. I was born dead, um, stillborn. Had the cord wrapped around my neck several times. My mom was in labor for 38 hours, and the pubic bone, I basically was stuck in the canal for a long time, and no breath was able to happen. And I was just compressed, like flat as a pancake and blue. And when they finally were able to pull me out of there and not breathing, and they just looked at my mom and said, "Sorry, she didn't make it." And what I remembered when these this and people say, "How in the world can you remember?" I don't know. I just do. And I re-experienced the feelings and emotions. And I have to say it was just these feelings of emotions. I could feel my mom's emotions. I was aware of my parents' emotions. My grandparents were there, and all the nurses and doctors, I could feel them like kind of, not kind of, they're like a little bit frantic trying to see if they could get some breath going because I got taken into another room. And anyway, so they're working on me, and I was I was just launched into this peace. So I was aware first of all the emotions and all the like franticness, and the pulling me back, and then I felt this pulling from the other side, this into the light, and it was so peaceful, and it felt like home. It felt like, um, yeah, it's so hard to put into words. It just feels like home. It feels incredible light and um, familiar. Uh, and this light is so bright and so present, and it feels like it's going through your whole system. And then when I got pulled back, it was just really jarring. I have to say, it was like from an expanded state into a small state. I was taken from that state into very procedural, clinical feelings, and it was quite scary actually. And they put me in a bubble. I never got to see my mom. They put me in a bubble, which is a big incubator in the back. And at that time, that was in the early '60s. They didn't have incubator. I mean, they didn't have prenatal care. And so it's brand new. Most of the time, I weighed 4.3 pounds and went down and lost a pound and went down to 3.3 pounds. So I was as big as a shoe. I could fit in a shoebox. And at that time, usually babies that small would die. But anyway, so I was in the hospital for several months, and my mom and dad would come uh, and visit because they lived in Hollywood. This was in Ojai, and a small hospital in Ojai, California, and they could come once a week and peer through a window and see me in the back. And so it was quite challenging on everybody's side. But as an infant, to not have touch and everything, when I was touched, it was very procedural, clinical. And so that's a interesting beginning. And so the second experience was similar, but a little bit different. I was about a little under 6 months old. The soft spots in my head had closed because the babies have soft spots in their head so that the skull can grow. And mine had closed. And so my mom, I don't remember this part. I'm grateful not to remember this part. But after, when I was telling my mom what I experienced, all the emotion, she just broken down in tears because she had never told me this. I was telling her. And the interesting thing that she had carried a lot of shame in her over the years because when people I was conceived before my parents were married, and in those days, that was a shameful thing, and so they kinda hid that secret. They got married, thought everything was gonna be okay, but then I was born 2 months early, so those feelings, and when I shared those to her, she had carried that for a lot of years, that was 17 years she had carried, and that was kind of a secret, but anyway, so the secret was out, and this surgery, they basically had to agree to it. I would have died or I wouldn't have had any kind of mental capacity to barely function. So they were really forced to do it. It's a brand new surgery. Two surgeons at this super small hospital were going around talking about this new surgery technique, and it was just the one that I needed. So these people they were doctors from LA, did this surgery there, and what happened then was they they gave me an anesthesia, and the anesthesia killed me. And I don't wanna say killed me, but it stopped my heart, and it caused me to have a near-death experience. And so and I it's hard for me even to say near death because you're near life. So the words don't, compute very well. But so what I experienced then, when they put me under, then I went out of my body again. I was not contained in a little body. I was expansive. I was free. I was around light beings that were very familiar. They felt like I always knew them, and I felt just held in love. And the light is so amazing. It's very much a contrast between the light of the operating room that's just intense when, I have these bright lights from these lights coming down on you in the operating room are nothing it's like night and day as far as the one is painful and the other one is peaceful. And so they had to restart my heart. They had to put adrenaline and they had to shock it to get it back going again. And that's a lot for a little baby to handle. Um, the doctor at the time said there's no reason that I should have been alive. To my mom, he said the only reason is she had the will to live. But I feel it was the will of God or the will of those who, because I don't remember ever having a choice. I think I would have stayed if anybody would have asked me. I wasn't aware of that. Some people say they were asked if they want to return. I don't think I would have chosen to return because it's so incredible. But I want to talk more about that. So that's a good why I at this point in my life, all my life, I have to say, because of these experiences, I felt like homesick. That feeling you have inside when you feel like homesick, and I didn't know why. So I suffered from this experience. Actually, I had childhood depression, and all the way up until 23, and then a big event changed that. Oh, I love your puppy. They bring so much light into our lives. Some some angels have fur, and some have wings, and some have fur. And so anyway, so I jumped to another experience that I want to talk about in a minute at age 23, right after my brother passed. So there's a lot of mixing in. I've had a life full of spiritual transformational experiences, they call them. I mean, lots. Um, but three near death experiences. These two happened as a child. And for me, remembering them, I thought at the time, that was supposed to be a healing prayer, and I didn't feel like it was that healing to remember because it was quite traumatic to it was amazing to experience the love, but it was painful to experience the contrast. And then so I had to kinda live with that and digest it and try to integrate it into my life and my consciousness, and that started, a life of searching. For over 13 years, I joined the church, thought I would live in community, religious community, and I lived with the Dominicans, the Franciscans, uh, all kinds of religious communities for over 13 years. I lived in a monastery and a hermitage for a year. I was very attracted to the prayer, the life of prayer, and the quiet, the silence, and also the common vision that you could find in community, whether it be, serving the poor, or it was all around service. And service has been something when I was 7 years old, I remember sitting on the side of my house and I was watching our neighbor. Their son had gotten on a motorcycle and he crashed, and he passed at 18. And I was watching people as a 7 years old. I was sitting against my house watching these hundreds of people come into their house and mourning his loss and the family. And I wondered what it would be like to lose people you love. And it's not something you can imagine. It's something you can experience, but you can't imagine what it felt like. But I thought at the time when I was walking in the front yard and I was stepping on the grass, I was thinking, it's hard to be in this world and not cause some damage, not even consciously. And I thought, I want to cause as much love as I can while I'm here. It's not that I'm very human and I make a lot of mistakes in my life. And, but my hope is, and it's always been since I can ever remember, is to cause more good in this life, and more love in this life, um, and to shine my light as much as I can. And so when I had to have the surgery. The second, actually the third time I was in the operating room. Uh, this time I remember, I was remembering they didn't give me hardly any anesthesia. I think they were scared that it would happen again, cautious that it would happen again. And so I was present. I could feel everything. And I have to say it was quite terrifying. I mean, and terror is a good word for what I was experiencing. I was cold, I was shivering, I was shaking. Um, and they had me locked down so I couldn't move. And I remember the smells and the sounds of the room. It was extremely cold. And I remember my jaw was just like, like, I don't know if hopefully people listening haven't had that experience of being so afraid that your whole body's shaking. And my jaw was just like shaking back and forth, just nonstop. And so I at that point, I didn't have another near death experience, but I had an experience of be in between. And so I could go back, I could be in the presence of these light beings that were just like holding me and safe, and that love was there. And then all of a sudden I would be having the contrast, of being in complete terror and being overwhelmed by these bright fluorescent lights and the cold and the smells. Um, and so that contrast was happening in that third experience. Um, it was it's quite it was like being in between. That's all that I can explain that. But so the surgery was successful after that, and I didn't remember until I was 17 these experiences, and it really was more of a re-experiencing. I don't know if it has something to do with maybe there was some post-traumatic and a remembering because it was like a flood of re-experiencing that uh, event, and so.
So was the hospital experience and the surgery where you were awake in between different than the last NDE, or was that the one that's different?
It was the last the surgery, it was different, it was like I was in between, um, like the other ones, I felt completely separated from my body. I felt expansive, I felt like I wasn't in that body anymore. I could see the body, but that wasn't me, and in the third one, I was still there, but I could feel the love that I knew and experienced in the first 2 near-death experiences. So I can only describe it as being kinda in between. I'm pretty sure that my heart didn't stop on that one. Everything, went fine because I don't feel like I felt like I was floating in between and then in my body. So when I was completely there, it was terrifying. When I was floating it and keeping my focus, I mean, and I wasn't trying to do it as a baby. I was just aware. My awareness went into peace and the expansiveness of that light, that loving light. And it feels like just an embrace, like you're being held and everything is absolutely okay.
You
It's
really
very
had these 3 experiences with the
yeah,
near-death experience as an infant when you were stillborn, but now you have another near-death experience.
yes. Yeah, and so, as I was saying earlier, I've just been attracted to the silence, the quiet, and I would go as a teenager just into the mountains, and I would fast and pray and just search for God, basically, and I love nature. I love the mountains and I could just all the the birds and it's my happy place. And so I was fasting and I overdid it. I didn't drink enough. It was very hot and I was there for about a week walking in the trails and I just collapsed. And I felt dizzy and then I just collapsed on the trail and I was gone. I was out of my body. Um, and I was in the light, going towards the light, and it was just overwhelming love and peace. And then all these, I have to say, uncountable souls were going towards the light. I was going with them. It's kind of like I was in the river, a stream of souls, and we were going towards the light. And I was like, oh man, I'm going. I'm part of them. And so as I was going towards this beautiful, peaceful light, I noticed that there was someone in front of me, and I saw his back, and I knew that it was my grandfather, and I said, "Papa," and he turned around, and it was the most amazing reunion. It was just like, and it really is more than telepathic. People say it's a telepathic communication, but it's more of soul to soul for me. It's just like this blending of just there's nothing unknown, and it's just so beautiful. My grandfather was a very quiet man, and I mean, really, I don't remember too many sentences out of his mouth his whole life, but I just loved him, and there was nothing unknown. It was just quite amazing, and I started asking him questions, and I felt like I was using my words. I was, asking like, well, why do people suffer, and why do babies, born go through pain like this? And all the injustices of wars, and I was asking questions really fast. And and the one question I asked him was, "What's Jesus really like? Have you met him?" And uh, all of a sudden, I was looking into the eyes of Jesus, and I knew him intimately, and and all the things that I wondered about him. It was just an unbelievable blending, and I was just going into that love of who he is. And yeah, as I was going into that light, I have to say, what it felt like to me is I was dissolving into his love. It was like I was no longer existing. It was just like, and and sometimes I hear people say, I hope that I don't lose an essence of me when I cross over. I really would like to lose all of me into love. I don't want to remember anything. All I want to know, all I want to do is blend and dissolve into love, and that would be fine with me. I don't have any desire to. I mean, if my life can be of some benefit to the whole, then so be it. But you know, I don't know. I just dissolving into that love is yeah, because you have no thought of you. It's just this. Yeah, it's so hard to put in words because it can't be put into a word because a word is an idea or a concept, and this is total experience. Kind of like trying to explain, if you've never had uh, chocolate ice cream and trying to explain what that tastes like to somebody that's never had it or experienced it. Yeah, that's kind of hard. I mean,
I
yeah,
agree. I
and
agree. Well, I have so many questions about these experiences. So I guess the first one is that you saw your grandfather.
yeah,
And I think a lot of people who watch these near-death experiences, they want to have the hope that when they've lost these precious loved ones that
yeah.
they go on. What made you understand that it was your grandfather? Did it look like he looked before you saw him?
No,
Did he look different? Was he a light being? How did you perceive him?
the perception was knowing. I can't say that why I would understand that it was him by seeing his back. I just knew. I felt him, and so I have to say if it was a knowing, and I just recognized him. I can't say that I even like when I was looking into the eyes of Jesus, I can't tell you what color his eyes were because I wasn't looking into a color. I was looking into his essence. And that was the same with my grandfather. I was like, I was looking into the essence of who he was and seeing the whole of that, which is incredible. And so that's my answer to that one. So what happened was I was dissolving into this love as I was looking into the eyes of Jesus and feeling, experiencing who he really was and is. And then this being of, I would just say this being of light, and I can't say whether female or male. I just say female just so I can continue to kind of describe this because there's a softness about this being, but a strength, and pulled me to the side. And I don't share this often, but after all these years of reflecting on this experience, I I have come to an insight or a knowing that who that was actually me. I was the beautiful being pulling me to the side, and an amazing, beautiful being of light, and pulling me to the side. And then I was asking questions, like all the questions, and as soon as I would ask it with my words, then immediately I had the answer. And then I just like got faster and faster. And, and I didn't know I had so many questions, but I kept asking them. And then as soon as I asked the question, I got the answer. So I realized all I had to do is think it, and then all of a sudden, it was just like this burst of light, of different colors of light, and it was like reds and yellows and just colors you can't imagine coming through my being, and every piece of light that was coming into me was like almost like a download of, and it was like ecstasy on top of ecstasy. And like there could be no limit to the filling up, the knowing. And I wish I could remember all of that. I remember quite a bit of it. But I don't know if we're supposed to, in order to have this human being experience, I don't think you could stay in that state of remembering fully, because it'd be hard to function. But
So can you share a
I do
few?
remember a lot from.
Yeah. So I guess of all the thoughts, so I'm being like in your mind after these experiences, you go back to this experience, do you not?
Yeah. It was so the strange thing was that nobody ever asked me, this being of light didn't ask me if I want to go back. I was yanked back. I was just like, "Phoom," and I was back in my body. And what I heard was the sound of a horse. I'm not a horse person. I don't know why I heard a horse, but the horse was actually in my ear. I could feel the heat from the breath, and this horse was going, "Arr!" And I was like drawn back into the physical body, and it was heavy. It was like molasses. It was dense. It was just, and I felt sick, and I felt not happy to be constricted and held in again. And, I just lay there for hours. I mean, it had to be at least 3 hours, even more, until it was almost dark, and maybe that gave my body time to cool off or re but it just, uh, it was hard to get myself back in. I didn't wanna be back into the density of that body, and I thought at the time, "Boy, I never wanna experience that again," because it was such a yucky experience coming back. You know?
So
I
many
wanna
people
stay, I
say
wanna
that.
stay gone. Yeah.
So I would imagine that you've got amazing recall because you said that you've gone back to this experience in your mind and you've thought about it and you've got downloads and information. So my question to you is, as you go back personally into this experience to relive it, to think about it,
Yeah.
what question that you asked on the other side do you personally revisit in your mind the most the answer to?
That's a good one because there's so many.
I'll take top five.
I think, the there's it's more of a knowing as I go back into it because, when I go back into it, it's like I just it's a presence. I go into a presence and I just, it's more I just lose my mind in a sense. That sounds funny, but I just am in the presence. And what is top on the list, I would say, is I'm here to have a human being experience and to bring this light of who I am into, as we all are, um, bring our light into an experience of contrast. Because we've created I do believe we've created this world for the contrast of it. And so that's top on the list, that we are here. There's a reason why we choose to incarnate into a physical form. And it's not about being out of your body. It's not about getting to the light because we are that light. It's a remembering. And the more I've sat with it and through the years, I realized that what I was seeking all those years was always within me. And so I that's the primary thing I would like to share with people. It truly is true. It's true when they say the kingdom of God is within you. It's not outside of ourselves, and it's within, and it's the peace within. And so it's the remembering of that we all bring into this experience, where we keep remembering who we really are. And we're the light, having an experience of contrast for the experience of expanding love. And that's what we're all about.
So, if we're expanding love, why do you think it's important for us to come here and have the experience of contrast? What
Okay.
is that?
Yeah. So kind of again, the idea that, you can't I always searched for many, many years. I searched and I wanted to know what real love was because what I saw in human beings wasn't all often so loving. And I thought, that's not love. I want to know what real love is. The thing is, that sentence, I want to know, you can't know it. You can only experience it. And so when you're not in a body, you don't have the contrast to experience it. I can experience in a human body, I can experience not love. I can experience the darkness. I can experience suffering. And that contrast allows me to have an experience rather than just a knowing. So I know in my being what it feels like to fall in love, to look into some a friend's eyes at suffering and to bring, to have that communion of soul, I wouldn't give up this life for anything, and I'm ready to give it up in an instant. So it's both. It's so interesting because I have both. I'm absolutely at this point in my life. It took me a long time to get here, but I'm in 100%, and want to share as much as I can the light and the hope and the love that I am and that I've been given and that we all are. I It's not I can't communicate this as much through my thought. I'm trying. As we're talking, I'm sharing. But what this is more of uh, a vibration, a feeling, a resonance. You can hear it through my voice, maybe. You can feel it through just this interaction. That's more powerful than all the ideas that we can tell. Because this it's not a knowing, it's an experience. Like, um, let me see. Like when I got the opportunity to sit with the Dalai Lama once, and I don't remember much about what he talked about. I do remember it was something about universal responsibility, but this was in the 80s, and I was sitting with him. And the thing that I remember the most is him laughing like a little kid, like a little child. And that joy was just bubbling out of him. And I've noticed that with many people, and there's a resonance of these teachers. And that's what I believe is shifting people. When you get around people, you hang around people that are full of joy, full of love, you start to feel that common essence between you, and you start to remember. I think that's what it is more than, I'm going to give you the answers, because why do we keep asking as humans, what's my purpose in life? Why do people, so we keep asking these questions, but it's more of a presence, a state of being. I guess that's the best way to be. It's a state of being. And how do we remember this state of being? Um, It's always inside. It's and I do believe that it's a time in our evolution, in our human evolution, that we s we stop handing the power, like, to the church or to the gurus. I love Dalai Lama, but even that, I mean, there's nothing wrong with religion, in a sense, but it can be a sense of giving up our responsibility and our ability to respond by giving our power away and thinking that it's outside of us. The only purpose for a teacher is to remind you and to create the conditions for for you to remember who you are. Like I'm a martial arts instructor. I've been doing martial arts for over 40 some years, and I have a school of martial arts. And I've taught, and I have always told myself, "Don't try to imitate what I do. Be at a certain point, I want you, at the beginning you can, but I want you to incorporate Aikido, which is a way of harmony, into your own energy, into your own expression." And I have to say, I have one of my students, he's a second degree black belt now, and I mean, I'm fifth degree black belt at this point, but he outshines me And I'm so proud of that because his Aikido is so beautiful, and it's such an expression of him, and I just he's so fun to work with, and to play with, and so, yeah, we're not meant to copycat all the people. We're meant to bring our unique face of God and light into this world, and that's what, uh, that's what we're here to do, so.
I'm sure people watching will be thinking to themselves, all right, what about some of the other answers that you got from the download since you remember more? Will you give us a couple more examples of things that you remember?
Okay. So, why do people suffer? That's a big one. Why is there so much pain in the world? Well, the interesting thing is suffering and pain are different. Now, years ago, and I'm going to explain this way. Um, s- the pain that we experience as humans gives us the contrast that is really important for our evolution and expansion. Um, for example, and that's not to say that the terrible things that happen are okay, because they're not. But we get to choose how to interact with that. And heroes are born in some of the most challenging times. I mean, one of the best books I ever read was Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl's book, where he was a prisoner in Auschwitz, and talks about uh, how he got through that and the meaning. Uh, when people had a sense of meaning, like, even they were going to live to see their relatives again that they hoped were still living, there was a meaning why they kept pushing through. And for those who survived, and some people, they lost the meaning and they would just smoke their last cigarette. And when you smoked your cigarettes, that was trade. So that meant you were giving up. And so, why is there suffering? Suffering is a message system. It's an information. For example, like, there's a wisdom in the universe and the body. Let's use the body as an example. Like, if I cut myself, um, now this is a cool thing to I like to share. If you cut yourself, the wisdom of nature, the wisdom of the body, if you cut yourself just like with a paper cut, it hurts like crazy, right? And if you cut yourself real deep, usually it doesn't hurt at all. And why is that? It's because the body's meant to survive. If you go through something and you get a paper cut, the body's saying, "Danger, danger, get out of the way. There's something sharp around here. Move. Scary, scary. Survive." So the body's giving you a information, a warning, something sharp around here. And with a deep cut, you feel nothing. Why? Because the body's saying, "Stay calm, breathe. Because if we move too fast, we're going to bleed out." And so, isn't that amazing wisdom that life knows how to preserve itself? There was a young girl, and there's a syndrome, and I don't remember the name of the disease, but where a little girl, usually these kids don't live past, a few years. This little girl, she couldn't feel any pain. And what happened was she made herself blind by pushing her eyes. She bit her tips of her fingers off. She couldn't feel any pain. She would break a bone and the parents wouldn't even know it because she didn't feel anything. And so it's this, we need the pain to in order to survive on a physical level, but on an emotional level too. This allows us to have information to expand and make choices and to navigate this realm. And we it all of this, it helps us expand in love. So what I noticed, I was in a car accident in 2019, and I was told I was going to be a quadriplegic if I was even bumped again. And so one, that thought made me quite afraid. I thought, I'm gonna end up in a wheelchair. I mean, even Aikido now was off limits. He said, "No more Aikido," so, uh, that was quite difficult. And so the fear rose, and I noticed that, and when my mind went into what would happen in the future, the pain got worse because I was not here. I was projecting to what, oh, I'm gonna be in a wheelchair, it's gonna never change, it's gonna get worse. I'm like, you know, done here, and so the pain got the tension, the stress got worse, and I'd be pacing back and forth because the pain was so intense at night. I'd have nerve pain going down from my neck into my feet, and that was a great teacher, I have to say, because what I learned was the more I resisted, the more intense it got. The more I pushed against it, the more intense it got. So where we find our resistance is where the opportunity is for growth. And my growth was surrender, even into this. And so the pain would get, what I noticed is when I was present with the pain, I'd notice it get really, really bad. And then I noticed that it would get a little less and then get bad again and a little less. And so I watched it, observed it, and just observing that it never stayed the same, that always things change, gave me space. So I was looking at it from a different point of view. I had space around the pain rather than, looking and saying it's never going to change. It's going to get, that resistance. And it's really true. What you resist persists. So surrendering into observing it from, oh, look, it's changing. It's getting worse. It's getting better. It's getting worse. It's getting better. Gave me space enough around the suffering that gave me power, in a sense, presence. Uh, and that reminds me of the other story I can tell. This was a story. I'm switching stories. Is that okay? Or do you have
Yeah.
questions about that one?
No, keep going, keep
Because it
going.
just came up in my mind. It's a very powerful story of what is the most powerful person in the world. And to me, what I've learned is the most powerful person in the world is the one who has nothing to lose. That I have no fear. And when you embrace fear, um, now there are certain times of fear is very instinctual, and it's good to get your hand off the hot stove, right? Or the response to. I'm not saying that kind of fear, but the fear that cripples you, the fear that causes you in the moment, when the moment is nothing's happening in the moment, to look into the future and say, I'm so afraid that I'm not going to do anything. It's paralyzing. So I was on a journey in France. I was going to a place called Taizé, which was a gathering of 40,000 young people at the time. I was in my 20s. And uh, anyways, I was on a bus, and the bus stopped, and I had 5 miles to where I needed to go. So I put my backpack on. I was walking. I wasn't hitchhiking, but this guy stopped and he said, "You want to ride?" I was walking near the highway. And I said, "Okay." So I threw my backpack in the car, and we started going. And that 5 miles turned into like almost an hour and a half down the road. And I'm thinking, hey, it's getting dark and you missed the turn. And he said, oh no, this is the quicker way. I go, it doesn't take, almost an hour and a half, 2 hours to get to 5 miles. So then he turned off a dirt road, and I thought, oh, I'm really toast here. I'm in a foreign country. I don't speak the language, and we're going down a secluded area on a dirt road. And so what happened was, I don't know if you've ever watched a cartoon. You remember the legs shaking like this? Oh, my whole body went into shaking. I was just like, the fear rose incredibly, and I went kind of like I went at a certain point, and what went through my head was, I said, if this starts, one of us will not leave here tonight. It will be him or me, but I will not be a victim. And so when I did that, when I said that, it was a prayer. I was actually praying to Mary, the mother of Jesus. I don't talk about that much, but I figured as a woman, she would understand, and a mom, she would help protect me. So that was my prayer. I said, can you step in here? Because um, one of us will die here tonight if this starts. And it already started, basically. He was driving in, and the shaking stopped completely. I got so peaceful. And he stopped the car. I looked at him, and I said, I said, "You start this car, you're going to take me to a hotel, and then tomorrow morning you're gonna come and you're gonna pick me up and take me where you should have taken me." And with such power, I said that. And the fear, it was like watching somebody literally die because all the color went out of his face. Because why? Because I had no fear. I had given up my life right then. I had let go of, I was not holding on to anything, and there was only one life left to take, and it was his. So the most powerful person in the world that has no fear. I had no fear. Zero. And so that
So how did
made
that change you after that? How did you live
that
your
rem
life differently after that piece of knowledge?
yeah, that made me aware that that my power was in, uh, surrendering and knowing that I am
Power
okay,
is in surrendering and knowing. And I'm
knowing
saying it again because I think
that
it's such an important thing.
you're okay no matter what happens in your life.
You're
I'm o
okay no matter what
No
happens.
matter what happens, you know, can be the most horrendous experience, and you're still gonna be okay. I find it a interesting thing, nowadays we have these people that we call transhuman thing, and that are trying to. I was listening to a gentleman, I can't remember his name, but he was talking about we want to have humans live forever,
Huh.
and I love.
Sounds like Ryan. I can't think of his last name, but he does all these experiments and he thinks if he does enough things to his body, he'll preserve it long enough
Oh
to get
yes,
the
yes, and but then
technology.
there's even people that think that they can um, uh, mix technology with human
Yes.
biology and make us live
Yes.
forever. And it's like, don't they know that we're already beings that live forever? And so I felt it was kind of a sad thing that they don't know this because we are eternal. And the physical form will shift because the things of the earth will shift. And these are like, our bodies are amazing technology of the earth, but it is of the earth and it will shift and change, and we will have other experiences. And so, but this knowing, I absolutely know we live forever, so we don't have to hang on to the fear of not being that. We are that. We are that that's never been born and will never die. We are
Beautiful.
that. And if
Wow.
you go into that aspect of you that's never been born and will never die, there's nothing to be concerned about. And
Again,
on the other
power of the
hand,
mind, right?
what's that?
Power of the mind, power of understanding.
The power of knowing who you really are. And
Mm.
and the interesting thing when we call mind is mind is more than what we have in our brains. You know, our bodies, um, Um, uh, our bodies are like living crystals. If you look at the connective tissue network, if you look at the brain, if you look at the pineal gland, if you look at the cerebral spinal fluid in the body, the cerebral spinal fluid has the same quality as a crystal. The connective tissue has the same quality as a crystal. The pineal gland has the same quality of crystal. If I took everything out of my body and I just left connective tissue, I'd have like a three-dimensional um, form of myself and in connective tissue. Connective tissue has a piezoelectric effect in that it has the same quality as a crystal. What are crystals used for? Communication system. We use them in our phones, computers. And so mind, infinite mind, is not just in our brain. We think that we're in here. We're not in here. We're everywhere, and we're having consciousness is having an experience through this body. But this is not consciousness. This is a face or an experience of consciousness, and like a node in the experience of life. But So we're receiving, we're this is the interface, basically. Our connective tissue, water, we're mostly, fluid and water. Water, have you ever seen the messages in water?
Of course, yes, Dr.
And so
Modem, yes.
everybody's, yeah, look that up if you haven't heard it. Um, um, we are the in that physical aspect of the water being, and there is really no place you can look in this universe. I mean, the world is made out of water. I mean, mostly water. So, that interface is interfaced with consciousness, but consciousness is really all there is. But this is an expression, kind of like a fractal, like a light, pure light shining through a prism. And that's what we kind of are, interfacing. Um, yeah.
So I want to ask you, because I did allude to this in your introduction, about how you've understood how to harness the power of your mind and how to focus, and you use extreme abundance
Yeah.
to help manifest things. And I think that this is the part where people who are listening can take this information. This is not specific to you. It's just something that you come to understand and refine, that you can actually share, that other people can use. So will you explain what you mean about harnessing the power of your mind?
Okay. And so you used the word abundance, so I'll just start there
Okay.
because I have been aware since I was very young, and my poor dad, because it's like I think I was 16 or 17 when I told him I figured, I understand something. And I told him I could sit on that corner and never move again, and I'd be perfectly okay. And he was like, "Are you gonna be a homeless person?" Poor dad. And, uh, and it's no. What I realized is that I had everything within me, everything was abundant, um, that I would never not have what I need in this life. And there was abundance everywhere. We live in societies and belief systems that kind of bank on, lack, and you have everybody's competing for the scarcity, and so, but actually we live in an abundant universe where it's all available and there is more than we'll ever, can use or need, or on so many levels, not only physically, but, emotionally, spiritually. It is a universe of abundance, and we can manifest through that knowing, through that, um, knowing that it's all available here now, and all it's a matter of focus. I was very good at, at very young age of focusing. I started kayaking, competing at a young age, and I would focus, and I was like, I have to say, that's this part of my personality because, like, when I can't honestly say I've never worked a day in my life. Because I've had such curiosity and such, interest in learning and experiencing. I remember when I was 16, I worked at a pizza place. I think that was my first job. I loved it. And I was the best pizza maker there. And, I just, I loved everything about it. And then I went to the next thing. I mean, I remember I was a janitor at a Kmart, and that's a store where and I just loved it. And I did my best job, and the learning, the experience, there was never a lack. Always felt abundant. So how can I tell people how to get to that place? Well, just go into the knowing and the focus that it's all available now. It's not a matter of will, it's a matter of knowing. It's not willpower, and it's not positive thinking. It's just an inner knowing that we have exactly what we need in this life and for what we came here for, to have this human experience. I mean, I remember being in college. I put myself through college, very expensive college, and it was I worked 3 jobs and was taking 21 units a semester, and I didn't have enough money for food, and what I discovered, this is terrible, I shouldn't say this loud, but I'm going to anyways. I was what I discovered at that time, and that was, I think, in the late '90s, is our especially in the United States, I have to say, I mean, the abundance here. People throw out, stuff, and the grocery stores were throwing out good food. So that's how I made it through college. This the what they were throwing away, and then I'd fill my car up with this good food and take it to the shelter, because there are people that were needing that food. And so the amount of abundance we have in this world is incredible, and to to have the sense of lack is just programming. And so I would say work on what you're being programmed to believe, because it's we live in a world of abundance. Enough for everyone, enough love, uh, enough resources, you know. And so it's a matter of focus and knowing. And if we're focused on the lack, then that's what we're going to experience. What you focus on is what you're going to experience. So surrender any thought of not having enough, and and go into the peace of knowing no matter what happens, you're going to be okay. If today was the last day of your life, live it to its fullest, love those people around you. And it is quite, I'm shifting focus again, but it's quite interesting working as a medium now. And I have people that, want to talk to their loved ones one more time. And it's just like, yes, that's important. But what about right now? The people that are here, talk to them now. Don't wait till tomorrow to say, I love you. Or don't wait till tomorrow to say, I forgive you. Or I forgive myself. It's now. This is all. It truly is. And when you enter that now moment of expressing love and kindness and forgiveness, gratitude, you enter that eternal state, which that's the essence of who you really are.
I love everything you said about that. I think that's so powerful. And since you mentioned your medium abilities, I'd love for you to just a minute to touch on the precognitive
Oh,
experiences that you started having very early on.
yeah. So as a child, I believe because of these as a preemie, I was just incredibly and these near-death experiences early. Some people have the near-death experience and they say their life changed dramatically. I don't really have anything to compare it to because I was always weird and really and incredibly sensitive, and I would have a knowing when people and uncomfortable. I wasn't comfortable with it, but I knew when people were passing, and I could feel their light. I can't say that I saw their light. It was more of a feeling of knowing they're going. They're not long for this dimension. I felt like their light was bright. I was sitting in that church, that same church, and this is an example of one time. And I could be in a grocery store and feel this, not just in my family, but others. And I was sitting in the church one time, and that's priest that I met there, that was the healer. He was going off to in his office with some people. I didn't know who he was going with, but he said, I'll be back in shortly. And I knew he was going in to meet with somebody about healing. That's all I knew. And so I decided to sit there and focus and join my love in prayer with whoever he was working with. And all of a sudden, this little girl was standing right in front of me, and she told me her name was Cassie. And I thought, that's so funny name because it sounds like a dog's name to me, Lassie or Cassie, and I was kind of laughing. And she was full of joy, and her light was very bright, and I knew that she was going away soon. And anyways, I didn't tell the priest because I thought he'd think I was out of my mind, and so I told my sister who already knew that I was kind of weird. And so I could tell my sister anything. And so I said, let's keep an eye out on the paper the next few days. And she's going to be there because she's leaving. She's going to the other side. And sure enough, she passed. She was about 10 years old. And her name was Cassie, short for Catherine. And I never said anything because it wasn't my place to say anything to anyone about it. It's just that connection. Um, and it's been a challenge, this precognitive, because I tap into it, and the only thing I can figure about it is that somehow I'm tapping into a different point of view where I'm seeing things from a different space of no time, of an expanded state where things have already happened. It's not linear. And so I experienced it with my brother. And for many months, when I'd see him walk away, I told my mom, uh, I get this feeling he's going away and he's not coming back. He's going to pass. And my mom got really freaked out. She wanted to get rid of the motorcycles. I don't know how it was going to happen. And I have to say, what it feels like to me, it feels like I'm dying.
Mhm.
And I have another story about that with a friend named Jim. I felt like I was dying. Anyways, it was my brother. I every time for months I'd see his back, and I'd feel like he was going away and not coming back. And I had shared with him. We went out to lunch, and I shared with him my experience in the mountains and meeting my grandfather, meeting Jesus, and I shared with that with him. And I'm glad I did because I had so much peace in his response, which was so beautiful. He just said, "I believe there's more, and I believe in God," and there was no theology around it. And I just said to him, "I don't know about all of it either. I just know there's more to it than what appears to be." And anyways, he came to me after, and he repeated those words, which gave me a lot of peace. But that day when he was getting on his motorcycle, he didn't have his helmet on, and I said, "Where's your helmet?" And he said, "Oh, okay." And, he went back in the house, put his helmet on, he had the visor on, and he had it lifted up. He goes, "Goodbye, I love you." And it was like somebody punching me in the stomach. And I just couldn't say it. I couldn't say, "I love you." I couldn't say nothing. I felt like my breath was taken away. And he didn't pass on his motorcycle, he passed in a car. We in his friend's car, but I had gotten in the car with my mom and dad, and we drove around the corner where he met his friend, and they were getting ready to go, get in his friend's car. His friend was 16 and my brother was 18, and his friend's dad gave him a Porsche for his birthday, 16. Porsches are hard to handle for an adult, let alone a kid. But so my brother liked to go fast, so there's nobody blaming here. It's just he was in the passenger seat and they were going fast in the mountains, and his friend couldn't hold the car, and it went into a tree and he was gone. And so when the phone call came, they don't tell you anything, just the phone rings and they say, "Come in." But when the phone rang, my mom hadn't even answered it, and I said, "Ron's dead." And I regret that to this day because it just bubbled out. And you just don't tell people before it happens. In fact, it doesn't make things better, it makes it worse because they panicked. And, since then, since I've talked about this precognitive, I have had people make appointments with me and ask me when they're going to die. Don't do it because I won't tell you. And even if I knew, it's not my place to tell you. It's not our place. And so it's just not information that you need to live your best life. And you can't, and then we talk about free will. Well, if you, how does that work, And, um, Suzanne started to ask me this question, and then it didn't. She said she didn't know if that was the right place to go. But I'll tell you, I want to say that this is a difficult thing to understand free will. We do have free will, but to the extent that we're conscious. To the extent that we're unconscious, we don't have free will. We're following a program. And so um, free is Free is considering the point of where you're viewing it from. How free are you? And so, yes, there's free will. There's choice every day. We make choices. Um, Does that make sense? Because it's hard thing. It's both yes and no to that question. Is there
Yeah.
free will? And I find that with a lot of things, there is a yes and a no. There's a paradox, and it's not as easy as, oh yes, this is the way it is, and oh no. That's I think why we keep asking questions like, what is my purpose? You know,
Yeah, I agree.
it's not
Well,
black and
Tammy,
white.
Tammy, I would imagine that there's a lot of people watching right now who want to find out where to work with you. And you have your new book that came out because so many people asked you for the answers in a book. So tell people where they can find you, how they can work with you.
Okay, so people ask me to write a book. I never thought to write a book because I've thought the world had enough books, and it's not up here; it's in here. It's in here, and so but it kept asking, "When are you gonna write a book? When are you gonna talk about these stories?" And so I wrote them, and I have to say it came out really nice. I wrote it a whole bunch of times, put a lot of work into it. I think you'll enjoy it. It feels more of a transmission because it came from the heart rather than the head. And
Mm,
hopefully, as you read these stories, they're my stories and journeys, but it's going to tap into your own stories and your own transformation, your own surrendering. And in the back of each, here's the book called Into Love. And Suzanne Giesemann, if you know her, she did the forward. She said she
beautiful.
couldn't put it down. So in the back of each story, there's called a invitation to pause. I don't know if you can see it, but it's called Invitation to Pause, and it's questions about your own journey and um, pausing at the end of each story to consider your own journey and how you can integrate some of these thoughts. It's written very poetically because um, I find that mm, a lot of this stuff you can't put in these kind of words, and poetry is more like music, and you can get concepts and ideas. And some of the best teachers in the world are storytellers. They tell a story to get a concept and idea because you can't really say it straight, you know? It's
Right.
like you have to chew on it and then integrate it into your own experience. And so that's how I've written it. And at the end of the the fourth section, there's four sections. I talk about the mediumship. I've been doing the mediumship. I never in the world thought I'd be doing the mediumship. It's, you know, for me, mediums were somebody you'd meet at a carnival. I didn't take it seriously until I met Suzanne Giesemann in 2018, and so I've been practicing ever since. And I started mediumship as a practice of my own self-development, anything to get closer to and more in alignment with the authentic aspect of who we really are. So that's how I use mediumship as a spiritual tool to connect more to that alignment. And so you can make an appointment if you like. I do several
Yeah.
things. I do healing. I love healing. I've been doing that since I was 17. And I guide through people through healing sessions. I do mentoring. So I do have mentoring sessions. You can talk whatever you want to talk about and cover whatever you want. And then I do the mediumship sessions, which it's all fun for me. And so it's my website is healingwellness.com.
Okay, I'll put all this information in the show notes. Tammy, thank you, thank you, thank you so much for taking the wisdom that you've accumulated and for sharing it and for shining your light in the world. And thank you so much for what you are doing to help wake up the collective. It is so needed today.
Thank you, Laurie. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for all your beautiful questions and all that you do, because we're all doing it together, you know?
We are all doing it together. And of course, the show is nothing without all of you who tune in to watch, listen, and
Absolutely.
share these podcasts with others. So thank you so much, everybody, for watching.
Bye.
I'm Laurie Majka. If you like stories that open your heart and expand your soul, hit subscribe. This channel is Waking Up the Collective.